Hi, everyone, this is the Encyclopedia Channel. The book that this program interprets for you is Plain Talk, Lessons from a Business Maverick. This book tells a true counterattack story. The protagonist is Nucor Steel, and gradually developed into one of the largest steel producers in the United States. The former CEO of this company is the author of this book, Ken Iverson. Ken Iverson. In 1965, Iverson became the CEO of Nucor. Developed into the largest steel company in the Americas and one of the largest companies in the world. For his achievements at Nucor, Iverson received the President of the United States National Medal of Technology, the nation's highest award for technological achievement. Later, he wrote his own management methods and Nucor's key experiences into the book. He wants to encourage companies and individuals to dare to take a different path from most companies like Nucor, dare not to follow the classic theoretical model, and start from reality to form their own unique cultural spirit. So, what kind of person is Iverson? And how did this company, which was about to go bankrupt, turn around and turn a profit? What are the management philosophies that Iverson has for our reference in the management of the company? After listening to this episode, you will understand. When it comes to steel production, we think of huge, stuffy factory buildings, roaring equipment, and workers operating equipment in it. All this requires huge sums of money. The iron and steel industry is a labor, technology and capital-intensive industry. The threshold of the steel industry is so high, if you do not have a certain strength, it is best to bypass it first. However, the predecessor of Nucor Steel, American Nuclear Corporation, plunged into the steel industry when it was about to go bankrupt. Oddly enough, the company not only survived, but thrived, even reshaping the steel industry to some degree. What's even more surprising is that the follow-up of this counterattack story did not slowly slide into mediocrity, but continued to advance triumphantly. There are very few companies that can maintain profit growth for 10 consecutive years. From 1966 to 1998, Nucor maintained a double-digit annual growth rate of almost 17%. What did Nucor do right, and why was it so successful? We will explain it in detail next. This interpretation is divided into 3 parts. In the first part, let's get to know Ken Iverson, what kind of person he is and what kind of philosophy he has. In the second part, when Iverson became CEO, what challenges Nucor was facing, and how did they make big gains from small things? Finally, let's take a look at Nucor's corporate culture, which is their secret weapon that can make a big difference with a small amount. First part. Let's get to know Ken Iverson first. Iverson was born in Illinois, USA in 1925. He grew up earning a degree in aerospace engineering at Cornell University, and later completed a master's degree in mechanical engineering at Purdue University. It stands to reason that with such a degree, one should go to work in a large company to show one's skills, but Iverson chose to join a small foundry for development. This choice is related to one of his earlier work experiences. Iverson had worked for a large international harvester company as a trainee researcher in a physics lab. The head of this laboratory is a serious scientist who speaks very straight. Once, the president of the company came to the laboratory to inspect the work and said something ignorant and a little offensive, but was mercilessly reprimanded by the scientist. The scientist was knocked down because of this, and eventually, he left the company. What happened to his immediate boss made Iverson see the dark side of a big company. The most important thing to work here is not to do a good job, but not to offend the boss. It was also the leader of the scientist who suggested to Iverson that if he really wanted to venture into the business world, he had better go to a small company, because only small companies will allow you to learn some real business skills. The following year, 1954, Iverson went to a small foundry, the Nickel and Chrome Alloy Company. He found that what the leader said made sense. When working in a large company, people can only see the situation around them and cannot grasp the overall composition of the company, while a small business allows people to see the whole picture of business operations, whether it is operations, accounting, research, or marketing knowledge. We can all understand that, more importantly, compared with large companies, small companies are usually more dynamic and easier to maintain entrepreneurial spirit. Compared with large companies with deep roots, small companies tend to be more open-minded, open to new ideas. During his tenure at Nichrome, Iverson served as plant director and chief engineer in charge of the foundry. What did he learn here? The key point is the creativity of employees. Once, Iverson wanted a steel pipe casting machine, but the price was as high as $250,000, which the company couldn't afford. After obtaining the approval of the chairman, he and the workers built one together, and it only cost about $5,000. Unfortunately, the machine only functioned normally for a few months before it broke down. The average person might see this experience as a failure, but Iverson saw something very valuable, that is, the creativity of employees. He found that even in a poor situation, employees can work together to create miracles. Since then, he has paid extra attention to the ideas of his employees. No matter how strange the employee's idea is, as long as it is reasonable, he will support it. Iverson did this not because he was a nice guy, but because he understood the benefits that an adventurous spirit can bring to an organization. In his view, no matter whether an employee's venture is a success or a failure, in the long run, it can make a certain contribution to the success of the company and employees. Therefore, if managers want to stimulate the creativity of employees, they must be able to tolerate failure. When they fail, they must resist the desire to criticize and sum up experience with employees from failure. Why did Iverson understand the benefits of a spirit of adventure when he first became a leader? This is related to a car accident he experienced. As a teenager, Iverson scrapped a car, his father's favorite, in a car accident. He thought his father would be angry, but his father just asked him to fix the scrapped car. More than a year later, with the help of his father, Iverson finally repaired the car, and his father also gave him the car. After a car accident, Iverson not only got a car of his own, but also learned about the structure of the car through car repair. This convinced Iverson that making mistakes during the adventure is not terrible at all. He said in the book, "Be brave to experiment, fail often, and learn useful education from every failure, which is the magic weapon for invincibility in the business world and in life." Opposing the bureaucracy of large companies, liking the vitality of small companies, emphasizing the creativity of employees, and encouraging the spirit of adventure, these qualities were all possessed by Iverson before he joined Nucor. When he brought them into Nucor, he had the possibility of making a big fortune with a small one. The second part. After learning about Iverson, let's take a look at what Nucor was facing when he took over. Nucor, formerly known as the American Nuclear Corporation, mainly produces nuclear instruments and other electronic equipment. But this company is very reckless. It didn't manage its main business well, so it set foot in new industries everywhere. Once, they found Iverson and asked him to help find a metal company. After Iverson recommended an IB manufacturer, he was directly invited to manage it. Over the past few years, Iverson has managed his department well, and it is the only profitable department in the entire company. But the problem is, due to the overall loss, the company is unable to repay the loan and is about to go bankrupt. The president of the company resigned, and the board of directors asked Iverson to come and take the order. Promotion was originally a happy thing, but what Iverson took over was a mess. At that time, even the board of directors gave up hope, thinking that the company had lost its chance of development. Although the task is arduous, the company also gave Iverson enough management freedom. No matter what measures he wants to take, the opinion of the board of directors is, okay, as long as it doesn't cost money, just try it. In 1965, Iverson officially took office. Using his unique business philosophy, he led Nucor Steel to turn losses into profits step by step, and made a big fortune in the steel industry. Under his leadership, Nucor, which can only afford to build small factories and only master simple technologies, first gained a firm foothold in the field of low-end steel products. Subsequently, when their economic strength was far inferior to that of their competitors, they achieved catch-up through technological innovation. Next, let's use two key nodes in the development process of Nucor Steel to understand how they made a big fortune from a small one. The first key node is survival. Nucor, which was on the verge of bankruptcy, had to survive first, and had to find a way to survive in the highly competitive steel industry. In 1965, after Iverson took over the company, he quickly sold the loss-making business, began to focus on core competencies, and bet all his chips on the profitable business, steel production. Within a few years, they went from making I-beams out of steel to steel making. In 1972, the company name was officially changed to Nucor. During this period, Nucor is struggling to survive. Of course, it cannot directly compete with industry giants. What should we do? Eat the leftovers of the big steel companies and do jobs they don't want to do. In the early days of Nucor, the products manufactured were relatively simple and low-end. For example, there is a kind of steel called rebar, which is at the bottom of the steel market in terms of quality, cost, and profit. For large companies, the rebar market is not attractive, and it is too late to get rid of it. But Nucor and the others don't see it that way. A small factory manufactures such a simple product without any R&D costs, and the depreciation rate of the equipment is still very low. In their eyes, this is a good business. And in this segmented field, there is no need to compete with the big guys. As long as there is profit, you can eat alone with peace of mind. Nucor started with these leftover jobs and expanded all the way up, making more and more product categories, and also began to make large steel bars, and angles. In fact, these products are the products with the lowest profit margins on the production lines of large steel factories. As the saying goes, one's arsenic is my honey, the products that big steel companies don't want, but Nucor has the ability to make and profit from it. By the 1980s, these low-profit steel fields were basically dominated by small steel mills such as Nucor. Nucor is very efficient in producing such simple products, but the problem is that they only account for a little more than 1/3 of the entire steel market, and there is no way to sustain Nucor's development. For this situation, Iverson has a very vivid metaphor in the book. He said that this is the cage of Nucor. Inside the cage are products that the steel giants are not interested in. Outside the cage, there is a vast cold-rolled sheet market. Cold-rolled sheet is a widely used steel, from construction to making steel pipes, cars, and other equipment. At that time, sales of sheet steel accounted for more than half of U.S. steel sales. If Nucor wants to continue to develop and grow, it has to enter the cold-rolled sheet market, confront the giants head-on, and defeat them. This is a peak that must be crossed. Next, let's talk about the second key point in Nucor's development process, catching up with competitors. If we were in the 1980s, we might feel that Nucor actually wanted to catch up with those big steel companies, and it was still in the field of cold-rolled thin plates. How could this be possible? Why do you say this is impossible? Because before 1989, only big steel companies had the ability to produce sheet steel. Large companies have mastered complex manufacturing processes. They can process raw materials, iron ore, and produce finished steel products. They also have the corresponding manpower, space, and equipment to do these jobs. Traditional methods of producing sheet steel are complex. Take one of the links, the rolling process of the steel plate. For example, if a 10-inch thick steel is to be made into a steel plate with a thickness of a fraction of an inch, the process of cooling, heating, rough rolling, and finishing rolling of the steel must be involved. At that time, Nucor only had some small steel mills. In Iverson's own words, these steel mills were essentially just waste processing plants. The raw material for their products was not iron ore, but scrap steel. If casting cold-rolled sheets in the way of a large steel company, Nucor would have to fully copy their production chain. But the problem is, the cost of copying is too expensive. For example, the rolling of steel plates requires many workshops. If these workshops are connected, it can be extended to more than 1.6 kilometers. Since the traditional way does not work, start from a new direction. Nucor and the others came up with a good method, which is to cast molten steel into a thinner steel, about 2 inches thick, and then turn it into a thin plate of a fraction of an inch. The thickness of the steel has become thinner, and the requirements for the production equipment in the whole process are not so high. If the finished thin plate can be sent directly to the finish rolling workshop while it is hot, it can also reduce the need for large-scale steel rolling equipment, so that Nucor can also complete the production in its own cheap workshop. This method sounds simple, but it is actually very difficult to do it. The difficulty lies in how to evenly pour molten steel into the mold, let it move quickly, and then take advantage of the heat of the steel to directly send the mold into the finishing workshop. In other words, although this new method simplifies the production process, it puts forward high requirements on the accuracy of the production process, so it has been in the experimental stage. Nucor tried to produce a thin plate casting system based on this new method, and spent several $1 million to make it, but it failed. However, they have not given up, but have been tracking the progress of other companies in this regard. Nucor noticed that an equipment manufacturing company called SMS had made a breakthrough in thin plate casting technology, so they went to visit and exchange technical ideas. In 1987, SMS was able to continuously cast 2-inch thick steel, perfecting the thin sheet casting process for commercial production. However, big steel companies have been used to processing 10-inch steel, and it is unlikely to pay attention to this new technology. Therefore, Nucor became the best candidate to implement thin plate casting technology. Nucor spent more than $200 million to buy a set of thin plate casting equipment and a thin plate rolling mill from SMS Company, and planned to start applying thin plate casting technology. This technology has brought a breakthrough to Nucor's production. The first is the cost advantage. Nucor's steel price is $50 to $70 per ton lower than that of large companies. Plus, the technology could allow Nucor to leave its competitors far behind. Big iron and steel companies didn't care about thin plate casting technology before. If they catch up, they will have to pay a huge learning cost. It was not until 7 years later that a competitor produced steel using sheet casting technology. It is with the help of this new technology that Nucor has gradually become the third largest steel manufacturing company in the United States. We now sound and feel that the luck of Iverson and Nucor is simply too good. Once you make a bet, you are betting on the right treasure. In fact, their development of thin plate casting technology is not to place a bet rashly, but to think twice. Before placing their bets, they carefully assessed the feasibility of the technology, what competitive advantages it would bring, and how it would improve Nucor's strategic position in the industry. Prior to this, they had followed the thin plate casting technology for several years. Nucor's ability to surpass its competitors in thin plate casting technology, in addition to prior preparation and careful evaluation, also has a very important factor, which is Nucor's attitude towards risk. At Nucor, there is such a motto: whatever is worth doing badly. What it means is that if you want to do something, don't always try to have a foolproof strategy, because innovation attempts usually involve certain risks, and you should put it into practice as soon as possible to see if it works. This maxim actually encourages trial and error. In fact, it did cause a lot of failures. Iverson said that almost half of the new technologies, new methods and new strategies that Nucor tried ended in failure. But failure often hides the seedlings of success. Isn't the thin plate casting technology you heard just now originated from a failure of Nucor? Regarding failure, Iverson also has an interesting statement in the book. That's what he said: don't fall into the trap of failure to rule out. The word risk naturally includes the possibility of failure. We must see this possibility and study this possibility, but we must not avoid this possibility. Sheet casting helped Nucor leapfrog its competitors, but the steel giant's growth was more than a technological breakthrough. They also know that they can't eat a new trick everywhere, so they have been developing new technologies and have achieved various innovative achievements. For example, a crane worker at Nucor found that improving the structure of the shock absorber can increase the speed of transporting products. If transporting a roll of products can save 6 or 7 seconds, it can save a lot of time in a year. For another example, for a long time, Nucor used steel scrap as the raw material for steel production. The price of this material fluctuates greatly, which is not conducive to stabilizing production costs. Nucor wants to mass-produce iron carbide, the most cost-effective alternative to steel scrap. At that time, no one could produce iron carbide at a cost lower than the selling price of high-grade steel scrap. But Nucor's workers, through continuous experimentation, successfully achieved mass production of iron carbide. The commercial production of iron carbide not only improves the cost-effectiveness of steelmaking and improves the quality of steel, it may even make Nucor's steel production process more environmentally friendly and clean. After listening to these innovation stories, do you wonder why Nucor is a steel company, but why it is like an innovation base with so many new methods and ideas? Is it because Iverson is particularly good at innovation? No, many innovations are not from him, but from frontline employees. Is that because Nucor's R&D department is very strong? Nor is it. Nucor doesn't even have a research and development department in-house. So where did these innovations come from? The answer lies within Nucor. The third part. When it comes to Nucor's success, people either attribute it to technological innovation or directly attribute it to Iverson. So what did Iverson think about why Nucor was successful? He answered it in this book and said it several times, but each answer is different. Let's take a look at what he had to say first. He first said that the secret of Nucor's success is 70% culture plus 30% technology. He also said that the distribution of wages, bonuses, profit sharing, and other benefits is one of the most critical factors for Nucor's success. He also said that the secret of Nucor's success lies in the word simplicity. They have been trying to put aside the complicated things in large companies, such as hierarchy and bureaucracy. With so many answers, which one is the real secret? In fact, these answers all point to the same direction: Nucor's corporate culture. If there was only one word to describe their corporate culture, it would be egalitarian. In Nucor, it is not capital that hires workers, but the cooperation between capital and workers. Iverson said that an equal corporate culture is an effective way to maintain an enterprising spirit. The enterprising spirit of employees is conducive to the long-term competitiveness of enterprises. It is precisely through egalitarianism that Nucor has made good use of the resources that other companies have not used, the abilities of employees, especially creativity. It can be said that Nucor's corporate culture revolves around employees. Next, let's take a closer look at the differences in Nucor's corporate culture. Let's take a look at Nucor's management system first. When Iverson wrote the book, in 1997, Nucor was already in the forefront of the Fortune 500, with annual sales exceeding $3.6 billion. Such a big company, guess how many people are there in their headquarters? Actually, there are only 22 of them. For such a big company, the headquarters is so small. This is actually a feature of Nucor's management, decentralized management. Although the headquarters is small, Nucor has many independent departments. When Iverson wrote the book, Nucor had 21 divisions, each with its own general manager. The headquarters requirement for the general manager is to bring Nucor an annual return of no less than 25% through the assets under its jurisdiction. In most matters, general managers enjoy unlimited freedom. They can independently purchase raw materials for production, formulate marketing strategies, determine production targets, and so on. When making major decisions, general managers do not need to ask the headquarters for opinions, and can make decisions based on their intuition. For example, the general manager of a division wanted to use an induction furnace to melt scrap iron. The managers of other divisions objected, but the general manager spent $10 million to get the induction furnace. As a result, this device has no effect other than slowing down the production schedule. Later, a new general manager came here and directly dismantled the induction furnace. $10 million, just like that. It may sound absurd, but it allows us to see that Nucor's decentralized management is not just talk, but is actually being implemented. In each division, almost all decisions are made by the general manager and employees. If the general manager doesn't want to screw things up, he has to rely on his employees and treat them well. At Nucor, managers and employees work hand in hand with the common goal of long-term survival, Iverson said. Employees want to have a good life, and managers want to make sure that, for the next 10 or even 20 years, no layoffs will be made and their children will be able to work here. The decentralized management system firmly binds the interests of managers and employees, so what benefits does it have for Nucor headquarters? It allows Nucor to be superior to competitors in terms of technological innovation, production speed, and flexibility. In addition to decentralized management, Nucor's management system has another feature: simple management steps. The average Fortune 500 company has 8 to 12 management ladders. Nucor has only 4 levels: president/chairman, general manager, department manager, supervisor/professional. That's all. What's even more rare is that no matter how big Nucor becomes, there are only these management ladders, and Iverson refuses to add new ladders. In his view, too many management layers will weaken the information communication channels in the organization. At Nucor, if a person needed information, he didn't have to call one secretary after another, he just called the person who had the information. If management steps are added, not only will the information not flow smoothly, but it may also be distorted in the layers of communication. The simple management ladder facilitates the dissemination of information, and the suggestions and information of employees can quickly get to where they need to go. Nucor shares all the information with employees because, in their view, employees need a lot of information to improve themselves, be smart, and do their jobs well. After talking about Nucor's management system, let's look at another aspect of their corporate culture that is different: the role of executives. Speaking of executives, people are used to this kind of arrangement. The executive manages the team and guides the employees. But in Nucor, the main job of executives is not to manage employees, but to serve them. Iverson believes that the manager's job is mainly to help the employees he manages to complete extraordinary tasks. In other words, at Nucor, it is not employees who make executives, but executives who make employees. The prerequisite for employee success is to have a good relationship with employees, which is also the focus of Nucor executives. At this point, Nucor has summed up many methods, such as having more informal conversations with employees to enhance mutual understanding and grasp the real situation on the front line in a timely manner. For example, executives regularly hold formal polls to collect, listen to, and take employees' opinions seriously. For another example, they will hold an employee meeting to listen to the difficulties and suggestions of the employees. Iverson said that the key to getting closer to employees is not the method used, but the intention behind them. You want to get along with employees. In Iverson's view, the manager's power comes from his subordinates. Staying away from his subordinates is tantamount to staying away from the foundation of power. At Nucor, the general manager of a division won't be fired if he doesn't know how to make steel, but if he can't keep in touch with the employees, he will leave. Why does Iverson always emphasize letting managers treat employees well? Isn't Nucor advocating egalitarianism? Why not encourage employees to treat their managers well? The reason is simple: it is not equipment that produces steel, but workers. In Nucor, the inspiration to improve production efficiency often does not come from the executive office, but from frontline workers. And that's the last thing that's different about Nucor's corporate culture, and that's the way people work. When it comes to steel workers, people generally think that they mainly rely on physical strength and experience when they work, and may not use their brains or creativity. But at Nucor, workers often use their brains to improve their work. For example, Timothy, a Nucor employee, saw that his branch spent more than $1 million a year to lubricate and maintain the screw devices on the production line. He found that there is a device that performs better than the screw device, does not require lubrication, and can reduce downtime for repairs. This small discovery directly saved the company more than $1 million. For another example, workers in Nucor's transportation department saw that the company's truck trailers were not suitable for transporting huge products, so they used the materials at hand to manufacture more suitable trailers. Why do Nucor employees put so much effort into improving their work? This is about Nucor's income incentives for employees. When Iverson wrote this book, Nucor's 7,000 employees were the highest paid workers in the U.S. steel industry. In 1996, the average annual income of Nucor workers exceeded $60,000. In addition to their basic salary, they can also earn a weekly bonus, which is often 1 to 2 times the base salary. Weekly awards are not for individuals, but for entire groups. The income of Nucor employees is linked to production performance. As long as they can cooperate well with their teams and work hard to produce, they can get a lot of money. And when people have tasted the sweetness of bonuses, they will attack higher bonuses. Iverson said in the book that the motivating factors mainly include the following points: opportunities to earn above-average wages, job stability, and opportunities for promotion. If a company cannot provide these, then no amount of training opportunities and beautiful office space can really motivate employees. If a company can do this for employees, employees will spontaneously attack higher output and take the initiative to use their talents. Iverson also said in the book that the biggest and most terrifying pair of contradictions in modern enterprises is that managers are worried because of their heavy responsibilities, and employees are idle because their jobs are not challenging. In fact, until now, this contradiction still exists. So, how to resolve this contradiction? Iverson's experience is to thoroughly recognize that employees are the engine of the company's progress, and strive to create an environment that is conducive to employees' continuous improvement in performance. In some companies, people need to rely on the talent of a few executives to complete key tasks, such as law firms and consulting firms. But at Nucor, most of the organization's talent is stored in those who are on the front line and complete specific tasks. The opinions of employees are often more able to promote the progress of the company than the opinions of the management. Now, let us review the essence of this book. Nucor was originally an unremarkable small company, even on the verge of bankruptcy. But it went on to become not only one of the largest producers in the U.S. steel industry, but a record of decades of uninterrupted profitability. This transformation is inseparable from Ken Iverson, the author of this book. He opposes the bureaucracy of large companies and likes the vitality of small companies. In management, he pays great attention to the creativity of employees and encourages the spirit of adventure. Under his leadership, Nucor has formed its own development model. Here, the headquarters does not direct the branch, but the branch is self-governing. Here, the executive does not assign employees, but the executive makes the employees, relying on the talent of the employees. Here, the steelworkers want to do a good job, not they will encounter constraints at the organizational level. They only need to give full play to their creativity, imagination, and collaboration, and they can get paid beyond the industry level. This kind of corporate culture is the secret of Nucor Steel's success. It has brought Nucor a competitive advantage in terms of technological innovation, production speed, and flexibility, helping it surpass its competitors and gradually grow into the world's largest steel company. One of the companies. There is a popular saying in the business world, the bigger the better, as if big is equal to good, and the bigger the scale, the more successful it will be. Scale will indeed bring a competitive advantage to the company, but after listening to Nucor's story, I believe you must have discovered that big does not necessarily equal good. Small scale can bring benefits and can also achieve great achievements. Does that mean that the smaller the business, the better? In Iverson's view, the competitive advantage brought by large scale and the benefits brought by small scale are not single-choice questions, but multiple-choice questions. We should find ways to make them all serve us. In other words, whether the scale is large or small, it is essentially a tool for enterprise development. We should become the masters of the tool, understand its benefits and limitations, make good use of it, and put it back in time. In the toolbox. This is the end of this episode of the show. What do you think about it differently? Welcome to leave a message to discuss with everyone. Hey, if you like our channel, please subscribe us. Haha, remember to like it.